No one in the Galactic Council expected fear that day. Fear was something others felt: lesser species, young civilizations, worlds that still looked up at the stars with wonder instead of ownership. For 12,000 years, the Council had ruled without challenge. Their words shaped borders. Their fleets decided survival. Their silence ended wars. And yet, as the Council's great chamber drifted above the artificial world known as the core, a single alert shattered that ancient certainty. An unknown vessel had entered Council space. The Galactic Council chamber was vast, larger than most cities. 7 colossal thrones floated in a perfect circle, each one designed for a species older than recorded history. Light from distant stars passed through the transparent dome overhead, bathing the chamber in cold, eternal glow. The elders were already seated. The Aurelian, tall and silver-skinned, represented order and law. The Carvol, massive and armored, embodied military power. The Nethrix, small and sharp-eyed, governed trade and calculation. The Mimari, fluid and ever-shifting, mastered diplomacy and deception. The Luminarchs, crystalline beings of light, controlled energy and science. The hive-bound, insectoid engineers, built the fleets that crossed the stars. And finally, the eldest, ancient beyond measure, whose rare words ended debate. Thousands of lesser species watched from the outer rings, silent and obedient. At the center stood High Envoy Selvaris, his silver skin dulled by centuries of command. His voice echoed calmly. "Report." A Nethrix analyst projected a hologram. A shape appeared, long, angular, and massive. 3 cycles ago, the analyst said, our long-range sensors detected an object approaching from unclaimed space. At first, we believed it to be a rogue asteroid. The hologram zoomed in. That assumption was incorrect. A murmur spread through the chamber. The vessel was enormous. Its surface was dark, matte, and scarred with geometric patterns that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. It did not resemble any known council design. No ceremonial curves. No elegant symmetry. It looked purposeful. Built for function. Built for war. Selvaris narrowed his eyes. Origin. From a region we catalogued as non-threatening, the analyst replied. A yellow star system. One inhabited world. Species designation. Humanity. Several council members dismissed the name instantly. Impossible, rumbled a Carvol warlord. That species barely achieved faster-than-light travel. They were categorized as primitive, added a Mimari, its form rippling in irritation. Unworthy of monitoring. The analyst hesitated. That assessment may have been incomplete. The hologram shifted again. The scale adjusted. Gasps echoed across the chamber. The ship dwarfed even the largest council dreadnoughts. Its length alone exceeded entire fleets. Weapon ports lined its hull by the thousands. Energy readings pulsed like a restrained heartbeat. This vessel, the analyst said carefully, is designated by its creators as a Titan-class warship. Silence followed. Heavy. Unfamiliar. The eldest finally spoke. Its voice was slow, layered, and impossible to trace to a single source. How long until it reaches us? Selvaris answered. Less than 1 standard hour. Far from the core, aboard the approaching vessel, humanity watched the galaxy hold its breath. The bridge of the warship was alive with quiet focus. Humans of every background worked at stations arranged in disciplined order. No panic. No shouting. Only controlled movement and soft voices. At the center stood Fleet Commander Ilara Voss. She was not tall. She wore no ornamentation. Her uniform was simple black, marked only by a silver emblem of Earth surrounded by stars. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp with intent. "Status," she said. "All systems stable," replied a tactical officer. "Primary cannon charged to standby. Defensive grids at full capacity." "Council fleets?" Voss asked. "None mobilized yet. They're watching." Voss nodded. As expected. Behind her, a massive viewport revealed the ship's name etched into the hull plating. Use Resolute. One of many. Humanity had not rushed into the stars blindly. For 2 centuries, they had prepared in silence. They had studied alien transmissions, mapped trade routes, observed conflicts, learned one simple truth: power respected preparation. When humanity realized they were not alone, they did not announce themselves. They hid. They built. They planned. And now, the galaxy would learn why. Back in the council chamber, alarms began to sound. "The human vessel has exited faster than light travel," an officer announced. "It is holding position just outside the core's defensive perimeter." Aurelian elders shifted uneasily. "They violate sacred space." "They have not fired," Selvaris replied. "Nor have they attempted entry." "Yet," a Carvol growled. The hologram changed once more. The Titan-class warship powered up. Energy surged along its hull in controlled waves. Shields layered upon shields. Weapon systems rotated, not in threat, but in readiness. "They could destroy the core," whispered a lesser envoy. "Yes," Selvaris said quietly. "They could." A transmission signal cut through the chamber. "Incoming communication," the analyst said. "Visual and audio." The eldest paused, then inclined its ancient form. "Accept." The air shimmered. A human face appeared, projected larger than life. Fleet Commander Ilara Voss looked directly into the chamber of rulers who had never been challenged. "Galactic Council," she said calmly. "This is humanity's first and final uninvited appearance in your space." Her voice carried no fear, no arrogance, only certainty. "We come not as subjects," she continued, "and not as conquerors. We come as equals." Murmurs erupted. "You trespass," Selvaris said. "You arrive with a warship and call it peace." Voss allowed herself a faint smile. "We arrive with honesty," she replied. "You sent fleets to welcome new species. You demanded tribute, obedience, submission." The smile vanished. "We decided that would not be our story." The hologram shifted. Space behind the Resolute filled with movement. Dozens of massive vessels emerged from hidden positions, their forms varied but equally imposing. Some carried weapons unlike anything the Council recognized. Others radiated energy signatures that defied known physics. A human fleet. "Waiting. We studied your history," Voss said. "Your victories. Your assumptions. You mistake silence for weakness." She leaned forward slightly. "We mistake nothing." The council chamber fell into stunned quiet. "This," Voss concluded, "is not a declaration of war." She met Selvaris's gaze. "It is a correction." The transmission ended. Above the core, the Titan-class warship remained motionless, patient, unafraid, and very real. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council understood something they had never planned for. Humanity was not asking for permission, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence inside the Galactic Council chamber stretched longer than any debate in its long history. No one spoke. No one moved. Thousands of species, some ancient, most conquered, sat frozen as the image of the human fleet faded from the central projection. High Envoy Selvaris finally exhaled. His voice, when it came, lacked its usual certainty. "They dare to threaten us in our own sky." A Carvol warlord slammed one of his massive fists against the arm of his throne, the impact echoing like thunder. "Then we crush them. Now. Before they multiply." The Nethrix economists flickered with uneasy light. An immediate conflict would disrupt trade across thousands of systems. The cost would be irrelevant, the Carvol roared. "Power is maintained through fear." The Mimari shifted forms nervously. "And fear is exactly what they just showed us. Not by aggression, but by confidence." All eyes turned to the eldest. The ancient being remained still, its presence heavy as gravity itself. "Humans," the eldest said slowly, tasting the word. "A species that hid in plain sight. That alone makes them dangerous." Selvaris straightened. They arrived with warships and demands dressed as diplomacy. That is an act of hostility. No, the eldest replied. It is an act of defiance. That distinction unsettled the chamber more than open war. While the council argued, humanity waited. Aboard the UES Resolute, Commander Ilara Voss stood with her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the distant glow of the core. She knew what was happening inside that chamber. Humanity had predicted it, modeled it, simulated it thousands of times. Fear would come first, pride second, violence third. The trick was stopping them at step 2. Fleet status, Voss said calmly. All ships report green, answered her operations officer. Council defense platforms are charging weapons, but they haven't locked on. They're testing us, Voss replied. Seeing if we flinch. A young lieutenant hesitated. And if they don't? Voss turned to face him. Her expression softened, but her words were firm. Then we show them we planned for that too. Back in the council chamber, a decision was made. Not unanimously, but forcefully. We will remind humanity who rules the stars, Selvaris declared. A controlled demonstration. One strike. The Nethrix recoiled. Against that fleet. Not the fleet, Selvaris corrected. Their ship. The hologram displayed the Resolute. One precision attack. Limited yield. Enough to cripple, not destroy. Then we offer terms again. The Carvol grinned, baring armored teeth. Yes. Let them bleed. The eldest did not object. That, history would later record, was the Council's first mistake. Space trembled as Council defense platforms aligned. A single weapon, ancient, powerful, and feared, began to charge. It had shattered moons. It had ended rebellions before they began. On the Resolute, alarms did not sound. Instead, data flowed calmly across human screens. They're powering a spinal energy lance, reported Tactical Control. Estimated impact in 30 seconds. The bridge remained quiet. Voss nodded once. Activate Layer 7. A soft hum filled the ship. Invisible to the naked eye, space itself bent. Not a shield, not exactly. A mathematical distortion. A solution to a problem no alien mind had ever thought to solve. The Council fired. A beam of blinding energy tore across the void, striking the Resolute dead center. From the Council's view, it was over. Then the beam curved. Gasps echoed across the chamber as the energy bent, split, and vanished into nothingness, harmlessly dispersed. The Resolute remained untouched. No damage detected, Voss said calmly. As expected. The council chamber erupted. That's impossible, shouted Illuminarch, its crystalline form flashing violently. That weapon cannot be deflected. It wasn't, murmured the eldest. The hologram zoomed in. The human ship had not blocked the attack. It had rewritten the space around it. The Nethrix whispered in horror, they didn't build stronger armor, they changed the rules. Commander Voss opened a channel. Her image filled the chamber once more. You've just confirmed our projections, she said evenly. You respond to uncertainty with force. Selvaris struggled to maintain authority. You test our patience, human. Voss shook her head slightly. No. You tested ours. She gestured, and the projection shifted. Council defense platforms across the core flickered, then went dark. Every one of them. A Nethrix analyst screamed. Our systems, offline. They bypassed our networks. Voss's voice remained steady. We didn't attack them. We talked to them. Your technology is ancient. Powerful, yes, but predictable. She leaned forward. We grew up fighting ourselves. Outsmarting rivals who shared our biology, our instincts, our flaws. Do you know what that taught us? Silence. How to think sideways. The human fleet did not advance. Did not fire. Did not threaten. They simply waited. Inside the council chamber, panic crept beneath centuries of control. The Carvol stood. We must strike with full force. And lose everything, the Mimari snapped back. They outmaneuvered us without firing a shot. Selvaris turned to the eldest. Speak. We need guidance. The eldest finally rose, its ancient form towering over the chamber. For 12,000 years, it said, we believed progress followed a single path. That wisdom belonged to age. Its gaze fixed on the projection of the Resolute. We were wrong. The eldest's voice softened, heavy with something unfamiliar. Humanity is young. And that is why they are dangerous. On the Resolute, Commander Voss watched the Council's reactions scroll across her display. Emotional spikes. Conflicting signals. Disarray. They're shaken, her officer said. Voss nodded. Good. Now they'll listen. She straightened her uniform. Prepare diplomatic package theta. The officer blinked. You're offering peace again. Yes, Voss replied. From a position they finally understand. Outside, the human fleet held formation, silent, disciplined, unstoppable. The galaxy had expected monsters. Instead, it had found something far worse. A species that planned. A species that learned. A species that refused to kneel. And the Council had just made them prove it. The Galactic Council had never been quiet like this. No arguments echoed through the chamber. No threats were exchanged. No orders were shouted. For the first time in 12,000 years, the rulers of the galaxy sat in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they did not know what to say. High Envoy Selvaris felt something cold settle in his core. Uncertainty. They disabled our defenses without firing, he said slowly. And then, waited. The Mimari shifted uneasily. Predators strike when they see weakness. Humans did not. The Carvol warlord growled. That makes them worse. The eldest inclined its ancient head. No. That makes them disciplined. That single word changed everything. Far beyond the core, the human fleet maintained its formation. No ship drifted. No weapon glowed brighter than standby. The Titan-class vessels loomed like mountains held in check by invisible chains. On the bridge of the UES Resolute, Commander Ilara Voss reviewed reports with steady focus. They are afraid, said her intelligence officer. But not united. Good, Voss replied. Fear divides those who rule by dominance. She looked out at the stars. Humanity had learned patience the hard way. They had learned it in trenches, in cold bunkers, in failed missions and near-extinction events. Patience was not weakness. It was endurance sharpened into a weapon. Open a narrowcast channel, she ordered. Council leadership only. The signal went out. In the council chamber, the projection shimmered. Commander Voss appeared once more, her posture calm, her voice measured. We are still here, she said. Because we want dialogue, not destruction. Selvaris stiffened. After humiliating us. Voss shook her head. After educating you. That word landed harder than any insult. You rule through fear, she continued. We understand why. It's efficient. But efficiency breeds stagnation. The Luminarchs flickered in agitation. You presume to lecture us. Voss met their gaze. We presume nothing. We demonstrate. With a gesture, she activated a data stream. Images filled the chamber. Human history in rapid sequence. Stone tools. Fire. Cities. Wars. Plagues. Spaceflight. Collapsing nations. Rebuilt worlds. Starships rising from ruined planets. You see chaos, Voss said. We see adaptation. The feed slowed. This is humanity's greatest strength, she continued. We fail faster than most species evolve. And every failure teaches us something new. The eldest leaned forward. You hid this, it said. Why? Because survival taught us caution, Voss replied. Every predator watches for noise. So we learned silence. The images shifted again, human shipyards hidden inside asteroid belts, construction masked by false energy signatures, entire fleets concealed behind mathematical blind spots. We didn't build our strength overnight, Voss said. We built it quietly. The Nethrix spoke next, their voice sharp with calculation. What do you want, human? Voss did not hesitate. Recognition, she said. Borders. Mutual non-aggression. And knowledge exchange, voluntary, not extracted. A ripple of outrage passed through the chamber. You ask for equality, Selvaris said. After threatening our existence. Voss's expression hardened. No, she said. We ask for it because you already threatened ours. Silence followed. You sent fleets to enslave emerging species, she continued. You crushed those who resisted. You call it order. We call it extinction management. The words stung. We will not join your hierarchy, Voss said plainly. But we will coexist. The Carvol rose again. And if we refuse? Voss looked at him, not with hatred, not with fear, but with something far more unsettling. Pity. Then nothing changes, she said. We will remain. We will grow. And one day, your control will end, peacefully or otherwise. She paused. Humanity is patient. The transmission ended. Inside the chamber, the council erupted. This is unacceptable, roared the Carvol. They challenge our divine mandate, cried a lesser envoy. They expose weakness, shouted another. Only the eldest remained silent. Finally, it spoke. We believed ourselves eternal, it said. That belief has blinded us. The chamber quieted. The humans do not rush, the eldest continued. They wait. They learn. They improve. Its gaze swept the room. That is how empires fall. Hours passed. Council fleets remained docked. Human fleets remained motionless. The galaxy waited. Within the Resolute, Commander Voss stood alone for a moment, watching distant stars. Humanity had not come seeking dominance. They had come seeking space, room to exist without chains. Her comm officer approached quietly. Commander, he said. Council internal networks show intense division. Trade factions want peace. Military factions want war. The eldest has not committed either way. Voss nodded. Then the balance is working. You're certain they won't attack? Voss allowed herself a thin smile. If they wanted war, she said, they would have already lost it. At the core, the eldest called for a private conclave. No projections. No witnesses. Only truth. We face a choice, it said to the other six. Adapt, or cling to pride. The Aurelian hesitated. To treat them as equals would unravel our system. Yes, the eldest replied. And refusing will destroy it. The realization spread slowly, painfully. The council had ruled because no one could challenge them. Now someone could. And worse. They didn't want to. As stars drifted silently beyond the chamber's dome, a message was prepared. A response to humanity. Not of surrender. Not of war. But of something the Galactic Council had almost forgotten how to offer. Dialogue. On the Resolute, the incoming signal appeared. Commander Voss straightened. Open it, she said. The voice of the eldest filled the bridge. Humanity, it said, you have forced the galaxy to reflect. Voss listened carefully. We will speak, the eldest continued. Not as rulers to subjects, but as powers who must learn to coexist. Voss closed her eyes briefly. Humanity had taken its first step into the wider galaxy. Not with fire, but with restraint. And sometimes. That was far more terrifying. The meeting took place in neutral space. That alone was unprecedented. For the first time since the founding of the Galactic Council, its representatives left the core not to intimidate, not to conquer, but to negotiate. The location chosen was a quiet system with a single dead star and no habitable worlds, symbolic ground where no one held advantage. A ring of stars glimmered faintly as two forces arrived. On one side, 7 council envoys aboard vessels older than most civilizations. On the other, the human delegation, led by the UES Resolute, flanked by its silent Titan escorts. The distance between them was measured, deliberate. No weapons charged. No threats spoken. Only observation. Inside the council flagship, High Envoy Selvaris studied the human ships with a mix of awe and unease. Up close, their design revealed something unsettling. They were not built for beauty. Every line, every angle, every exposed surface had purpose. "These are not symbols of power," Selvaris murmured to the eldest beside him. "They are tools." "Yes," the eldest replied. "Which makes them honest." That honesty frightened Selvaris more than any display of arrogance ever had. Aboard the Resolute, Commander Ilara Voss reviewed the diplomatic briefing one last time. Around her stood a small team: engineers, cultural analysts, historians, and one civilian observer. No crowns. No rituals. Humanity did not believe authority required decoration. "They're ready," her comm officer said. Voss nodded. "Open the channel." The space between the fleets shimmered as a shared holographic environment formed. Neither side dominated the projection. The scale was equal. The light neutral. The council appeared first, 7 figures, ancient and imposing. Then humanity. Not as a single ruler, but as a delegation. Selvaris frowned. "You send many voices." Voss met his gaze. "We learned long ago that no single voice speaks for humanity." That answer unsettled several council members immediately. The eldest spoke first. "You have forced change upon us," it said. "Few have ever done that and survived." Voss replied calmly. "We didn't force it. We revealed it." The Mimari shifted. "You claim restraint, yet your power threatens everything we've built." "Power unused is not a threat," Voss answered. "It's a choice." The Carvol snarled. "You expect us to trust that choice." Voss turned slightly, gesturing to the human delegates beside her. "This is Dr. Annika Rao," she said. "She lost her home world to a human civil war centuries ago. This is Engineer Mateo Cruz, whose family survived 3 planetary evacuations. This is Archivist Lena Okoye, whose job is remembering what happens when fear leads decisions." She faced the council again. "We trust restraint because we've lived without it." The chamber fell quiet. The Nethrix broke the silence. "Your technology, it exceeds projections. Why share it at all?" Voss did not answer immediately. "When humans first split the atom," she said, "we stood on the edge of self-destruction. Some of us wanted dominance. Others wanted annihilation. What saved us was understanding consequences." She looked directly at the eldest. "You built an empire to prevent chaos. We built systems to survive it." The distinction mattered. Hours passed. Arguments rose and fell. Old doctrines were questioned. Long-held assumptions cracked under scrutiny. For the first time, the council heard something new: not pleas, not rebellion, but reason. Humanity did not ask the galaxy to kneel. They asked it to think. Eventually, the eldest raised a hand. "We will speak plainly," it said. "Your existence destabilizes our order." Voss nodded. "We know." "And yet," the eldest continued, "destroying you would destabilize it further." Another pause. "We propose un accord." Selvaris inhaled sharply. "An equal accord." The eldest turned to him. "There is no other kind that will last." The words echoed like a shockwave. The terms were outlined carefully. Borders recognized. Non-aggression enforced both ways. Open communication channels. Voluntary exchange of knowledge. Not weapons, not control, but understanding. Humanity listened. Then Voss spoke. "We accept," she said. "With one addition." The council stiffened. "We reserve the right," Voss continued, "to defend any species targeted for extermination under your authority." Outrage erupted. You challenge our sovereignty. Selvaris snapped. No, Voss replied. We challenge extinction. The eldest considered this for a long moment. Then it said something no council member had ever heard. Perhaps, it said slowly, extinction was never order, only convenience. Silence followed. Then, one by one, the council envoys inclined their heads. Agreement. The accord was signed. No fireworks followed. No victory chants echoed. Just a quiet understanding that the galaxy had changed direction. As fleets withdrew, Selvaris lingered. He addressed Voss privately. You could have ruled, he said. You had the strength. Voss met his eyes. So did you, she replied. For 12,000 years. She paused. Tell me, did it bring peace? Selvaris had no answer. The human fleet departed without ceremony. But the ripples spread fast. Across thousands of systems, rumors ignited hope. Subjugated species whispered of protection. Traders spoke of new markets. Engineers dreamed of shared knowledge. And rulers everywhere felt something unfamiliar pressing against their certainty. Limits. On the Resolute, Commander Voss allowed herself one quiet breath of relief. Commander, her officer said. What if they break the accord? Voss looked out at the stars, endless and indifferent. Then we remind them, she said, why we earned it. Humanity had not overthrown the old gods. They had taught them something far more dangerous. How to listen. Change did not arrive with explosions. It arrived quietly. In the months following the accord, the galaxy continued as it always had. Ships traveled trade lanes, council decrees were issued, and ancient powers maintained their rituals. To the casual observer, nothing seemed different. But beneath the surface, everything was shifting. Because for the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council had been told no, and had accepted it. On worlds that had lived under council rule for centuries, rumors spread like wildfire. The humans stopped an extermination fleet. They forced the council to negotiate. They don't demand tribute. Most dismissed these stories as impossible. Until proof arrived. In a remote system near the galactic fringe, a minor species known as the Tarralin missed their tribute deadline. In the past, that failure would have meant orbital bombardment and forced relocation. This time, a council enforcement fleet arrived, and stopped. A human task group emerged from hyperspace and positioned itself between the fleet and the planet. No shots were fired. The council ships withdrew. Across the galaxy, a message became clear. The rules were changing. Back on Earth, humanity watched cautiously. Celebration had been minimal. No parades filled the streets. No monuments were raised. Humanity had learned not to mistake survival for victory. In a quiet office overlooking the Pacific, Commander Ilara Voss stood before a window, watching waves crash endlessly against the shore. She had returned home. You did it, said Dr. Annika Rao softly from behind her. Voss shook her head. We started it. Rao smiled faintly. The galaxy sees you as protectors now. That, Voss replied, is what worries me. Beyond human space, the council struggled. Internal debates grew heated. Younger species began demanding representation. Trade blocs questioned tribute systems. Even the Carvol military faced something unfamiliar, restraint enforced from the outside. High Envoy Selvaris found himself aging faster than he ever had before. He stood once more in the council chamber, addressing an assembly more divided than any in history. We believed dominance ensured stability, he said. But stability without justice is simply stagnation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The eldest watched silently. We face a choice, Selvaris continued. Adapt, or fracture. For the first time, many agreed. Humanity did not rush to fill the vacuum. That surprised everyone. They did not seize territory. They did not demand leadership. They built networks instead, communication relays, shared research stations, rescue corridors through dangerous space. Wherever humans went, they asked questions before issuing orders. That alone reshaped diplomacy. Years passed. Human technology spread, not as weapons, but as tools. Energy stabilizers saved dying stars. Terraforming knowledge revived barren worlds. Medical advancements cured diseases older than some civilizations. And in return, humanity learned. Alien sciences reshaped human physics. New philosophies influenced human culture. The stars no longer felt empty. The galaxy became crowded, alive. Commander Voss aged like any human, slowly, visibly. On the 20th anniversary of first contact, she stood once more aboard the UES Resolute, now preserved as both a warship and a symbol. A message arrived. From the eldest. "You were right," it said. "Power unused can change more than power applied." Voss smiled sadly. "We learned that lesson the hard way." The final test came without warning. From beyond mapped space, something ancient stirred. A force older than the Council. Older than recorded history. It devoured stars and left silence behind. The galaxy panicked. The Council hesitated. Humanity did not. Fleets mobilized. Not just human, but allied. Species that had once bowed now stood together. For the first time, the galaxy faced extinction not as subjects, but as partners. When the battle came, it was brutal. Entire systems were lost. Millions died. But the galaxy held. Because humans did what they always had. They adapted. They learned mid-battle. Changed tactics. Took risks others wouldn't. And when victory finally came, it was shared. Afterward, as debris drifted through quiet space, the eldest addressed the assembled fleets. "This galaxy survived," it said, "because one species refused to rule and chose to stand." Its gaze found the human ships. Humanity changed us. Commander Voss watched the stars one last time before retiring. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had done something far harder. They had taught it courage without cruelty, strength without domination, power without chains. The stars were no longer ruled. They were shared. And somewhere, on countless worlds, young species looked up at the night sky, not with fear, but with hope. Because humanity had arrived. And they stayed human. The warning came without drama. No explosions. No alarms across the stars. Just silence, where stars once burned. Human deep space sensors were the first to notice. Entire regions of space were going dark. Not destroyed. Not shattered. Simply erased. On the bridge of the UES Vanguard, a forward exploration titan, analysts stared at impossible data. Star output reduced to 0, one officer whispered. No radiation. No debris. "That's not a superweapon," another said. "That's consumption." Within hours, the signal reached Earth. Then the Council. Then every allied system. Something was coming. Something older than borders. Older than fear. In the rebuilt Galactic Assembly, no longer a throne room, but a circular hall of equals, panic spread fast. "This entity predates the Council," said a Luminarch scientist, its light flickering erratically. "It feeds on stellar mass itself." "A void intelligence," added a Nethrix. "No communication. No emotion. Only hunger." For the first time since Unity began, species looked not to the Council, but to humanity. Commander Ilara Voss, older now, her hair threaded with grey, stood once again at the center. "We don't beat this by force alone," she said calmly. "We beat it by thinking differently." The Carvol clenched his fists. "Our largest weapons barely slow it." Voss nodded. "Then stop thinking like warriors." Silence followed. Then she said the word no one expected. Starvation. Humanity proposed a plan so dangerous it bordered on madness. They would not attack the entity directly. They would deny it food. Using combined human-alien technology, entire star systems would be collapsed into controlled energy locks, sealed away, unreachable, preserved but inaccessible. Sacrifices would be made. Lives would be lost. But the galaxy would survive. Why should we trust you? One delegate asked. Voss answered simply. Because we've done this before, on our own world. We chose survival over comfort. The vote passed. Not unanimously, but enough. The war that followed was not glorious. It was quiet, strategic, terrifying. Human engineers worked beside insectoid builders. Luminarch energy masters amplified human mathematics. Mimari diplomats coordinated evacuations with ruthless efficiency. For the first time in history, the galaxy moved as one organism. When the entity arrived, an absence shaped like intelligence, it found a galaxy that refused to feed it. Star by star, its advance slowed. Confused. Then weakened. Then trapped. The final containment was achieved at terrible cost. 3-star systems were sealed forever. Millions displaced. But the galaxy lived. When it was over, no one celebrated. They mourned. Together. After the crisis, the eldest addressed the assembly one final time. We ruled through fear, it said. Humanity ruled through choice. It turned toward the human delegates. You did not save the galaxy with power. You saved it with responsibility. Ilara Voss stood alone later, gazing at a reconstructed star field. A young officer approached. Commander, he asked, what happens now? Voss smiled faintly. Now, she said. Now we build something worth protecting. The galaxy did not return to normal. It evolved. After the dark beyond was contained, no one spoke of victory. There were no banners, no triumphs carved into stone. Too many worlds had gone silent. Too many lives had been uprooted. And yet, something undeniable had changed. Fear no longer ruled the stars. Years passed. The old Galactic Council was formally dissolved. In its place rose the Stellar Concord, not an empire, not an alliance of rulers, but a shared framework. Every species had a voice. Every world had a vote. Slow, inefficient, frustrating, human. At the heart of it all stood a principle humanity insisted upon. No decision made without consequence shared. Many species struggled with that idea. Power had always meant distance from suffering. Humanity rejected that entirely. If a choice endangered lives, humans insisted those making it stand close enough to feel the weight. That alone reshaped leadership across the galaxy. Commander Ilara Voss never sought power. She refused permanent office, declined monuments, turned down titles offered by dozens of worlds. When asked why, she gave the same answer every time. Because humanity doesn't need symbols. What we need, she said, is memory. So instead of statues, humans built archives. Living records of mistakes, of failures, of wars they nearly lost, of times they chose wrong, and learned. Alien scholars found it disturbing and irresistible. On distant worlds, human teachers arrived, not soldiers. They taught problem-solving instead of obedience, curiosity instead of doctrine, debate instead of decree. Some governments resisted. Those governments did not last. Not because humans overthrew them, but because their own people asked a dangerous question. Why not us? The greatest test of humanity's legacy came quietly. A generation after first contact, a young species, barely spacefaring, launched an experimental drive that destabilized its home star. Panic spread. Old instincts screamed for containment. Extermination protocols resurfaced in forgotten council archives. The vote came close. Very close. Human delegates stood and did something unexpected. They voted against their own safety. We will risk ourselves, they said, so they can live. Human fleets evacuated the system. Engineers stabilized the star. Millions of lives were saved. The message was clear. Humanity would not become what they replaced. Ilara Voss grew old. Her final days were spent on a quiet world beneath an unfamiliar sky. Children, human and alien alike, played under twin suns. She watched them with tired, satisfied eyes. A representative of the Concord visited her near the end. "The galaxy calls you its protector," they said. Voss smiled weakly. "Then the galaxy still misunderstands us." She turned her gaze upward. "We're not protectors," she said softly. "We're reminders." "Of what?" the representative asked. Voss answered with her last lesson. "That strength without empathy becomes tyranny. That intelligence without humility becomes extinction. And that survival means nothing if you forget why you wanted to live." She closed her eyes. And the galaxy felt it. Centuries later, humanity was no longer the newest power. They were something rarer. A standard. Young civilizations studied human history, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. They learned how a fragile species from a small blue world had faced gods, darkness, and themselves, and chose to stay human. In the deep archives of the Stellar Concord, a single sentence was etched, not in stone, but in every shared language. When the galaxy learned to fear extinction, humanity taught it courage. And among the endless stars, that lesson endured. Because humanity did not arrive to rule. They arrived to prove that even in an infinite universe, character still matters.